Welcome to Kidmin Backstage, the place where we talk about kids ministry and take a peek behind the scenes. We try to share a little bit of what we've learned that works for us and some of our failures so you can avoid them. We release a new episode every Friday, and this is your backstage pass to see the magic or the disaster that happens behind the scenes of our kids ministry. I'm your host, Gabe Baker, and today I am joined by Brother Kyle. How's it going?
Hey, it's going well.
Good. I'm back in the saddle.
Yeah.
So,
new year, new me.
New year, new you. Yeah, there you go.
I'm chuckling, but because we were Brother Callan preached on the was it Failure Friday? Is that what
Failure Friday?
Yeah. So I was just thinking about that.
So it was funny because he was telling me after that he's like, bro, I was preaching to myself. He said.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah.
I think he's on some kind of diet or something.
Yeah, he's doing.
Like, I'm about to fall over.
He's doing the one that a lot of people in our church have been doing to lose a lot of weight. So
yeah,
I brought him. He's not eating a lot of carbs, right? So which is like bread and stuff. He's like, brother, I love bread.
Yeah.
And so there's a bread called Hero Bread, and it's not an advertisement, but they sell that Safeway. It's really low carb, but it's actually good. Like a lot of the low carb bread is like nasty. It tastes like cardboard. And so I brought him some yesterday. He was like, brother, that bread was so good.
Anisha, my daughter, was making them some cookies last night, in fact. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I came upstairs. I was like, Anisha, I just remembered. It's like he's on keto or whatever it is. And she's like, oh, no. Well, apparently she talked to him today, and Sister Cowan is also on it, and
that's so funny.
And they said, "Well, you can make some little ones for Hezzy," and so
that's funny.
But anyway, all right. Well, what are we talking about today?
Get it together.
Get it together. You know, it's funny because I always, when I send out these outlines, I send out, it says the title, and then there's a hyphen and the name.
Right.
So when I send this to you, it looked like, "Get it together, Kyle." And there's an exclamation point. Get it together.
Yeah.
Kyle.
I was like, I looked at it and said, I think this one's for me. Yeah.
Well, so this kind of came about a little bit in a text message some texting we did the other day in post event, just some cleanup and stuff, and noticing things that could potentially be better, and so not necessarily going to talk about that, but that's kind of where I thought of all these little things,
Right.
So I think being like a man of action is something that's attractive, and it's like, I want to be that, and I think we should be. You could sit around and plan all day and not get anything done.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's impressive and everything. But I also know that when we rush right into something, a theme, a lesson, some kind of big moment, and like even events,
right,
often the first thing to get sacrificed is organization.
For sure.
And so, but any kind of great ministry, like a great Sunday school ministry, great leadership, and when you see those fail and falter and fall apart, they didn't really fall apart in public. They fell apart behind the scenes. It's just like the spotlight moments where you see the victories. It didn't really happen in the public. It happened behind the scenes.
Right,
so the same thing with all these, we want consistency, impact, growth. To do that, we have to be organized.
Right. Proverbs 21:5 says this exact thing. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. So it's saying careful planning and consistent, diligent effort lead to success and abundance, while impulsive, hasty actions often result in poverty or failure. We have to remember that the 5 P. Well, in the military it was the 6 P's, but I got the Holy Ghost now, so I got to get rid of one of those P's.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'll call it the 5 P's, which is prior planning prevents poor performance.
Yes.
These these ideas we always have, and we've talked about this on podcasts before, when you go to your pastor with an idea for Sunday school or maybe a new event, the first thing at least our pastor will ask us is like, do you have a plan in place?
Right.
And it's like, well, no. Then he's like, well, go get a plan in place and then come back and talk to me about it. And we can't, there's nothing wrong with jumping into things, but we have to have these things planned out. Because I think success rests upon organization and well planned out thoughts. We can't plan for everything. Things are going to happen in an event. We just did our Heart of Christmas a month or so ago, and there's going to be things that happened in individual nights that didn't happen in any practice, no matter how many times we practice, that we weren't expecting, things like that. But the more you organize, the more you practice, the more you prepare, the more capable you are to handle when those things happen. Yeah,
well, it's funny because that example, I was talking to, I think it was my daughter, and I was saying how Joey, brother Joey and I, we've done the skit God's Chisel several times, over the years. Right. We've done a few other ones, but that's been one of the main ones that we do kind of towards the end of the production. And we've practiced it a bunch, and when we practice it every year, we have to kind of, knock the edges off and kind of remember some lines and stuff. But once we got it, so like this year, we had it within probably 15 minutes of our first practice. But we practiced it several times. And that's the key. We practiced. We didn't just get it. We practiced it. And in fact, so much that like we had a gap before it in the production. We're backstage. We're in the tent. And we're running our lines and fast forward just to make sure.
Yep.
Well, I've told this story a couple times, but, a couple years ago, he forgot his note. And it's a major part of the story or the skit. And we had to ad-lib it. And so basically, people probably that listen have heard this before, but for those that haven't, there's a note, and I'm telling him to reach into his back pocket. I'm playing the part of God, and I tell him, reach into your back pocket, and he reads this note. It's a really emotional, dramatic part of the scene.
Right.
And one year, he gave me a very subtle shake of the head before I said it, and I knew he didn't have the note.
That's
and so
funny.
we ad-libbed, and I said, tell me about the letter you wrote, Anyway, but we were able to do that, and had we done something like that this year, because of all the practice, all the little things. In fact, the first night, we did a skit and missed a couple lines, but nobody in the audience ever knew. They never knew that we missed anything.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny that you mentioned that type of situation. So I think it was first night, same thing happened to Brother Keach. So we have a skit together. And I'm talking literally maybe 3 seconds before we're about to walk out. He turns to me and says, I don't know any of my lines. I forgot all my lines. And then at the next second, we're walking out. And, he's panicking because he gets pretty nervous or whatever. But I just knew, I say the first line when we go out there. And I just knew because of all the practice that we had, the preparation leading up to, even though that was a moment of panic inside, I could see it in his face. I was like, I just knew that once we got going, that it would all just be like muscle memory, and that practice. Those are the moments you realize, this is why we practice. These are the moments why we go through it like we do, because when you have that moment of freezing up a little bit, you just kind of go back to your muscle memory. And as soon as I said my first line, he got right into it, and there was no issues leading up to it. So it's pretty funny. It's just
I remember him saying that after. I didn't hear him say that live, but afterward, I remember you guys telling me about that.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
So it's all those things behind the scenes, and on the flip side, when you see something, there is situations that just fail or whatever, or maybe a freeze up like you just mentioned that doesn't flow. But for the most part, when you see a failure on stage or in the public, it's often because of a lack of all that behind the scenes practicing and everything. And so and that's, I guess, I wrote a note, action without organization eventually breaks down. We talk about momentum, and momentum's a good thing. I like John Maxwell talks about, he says, when he's talking about when momentum, but he's like a basketball team or whatever. He said, when you're winning, nothing hurts.
Yeah.
When you're losing, everything hurts.
Oh yeah. It's that adrenaline that you feel of winning and stuff like that. You just don't even realize time kind of just doesn't happen. It just, everything just kind of is flowing. And then when you're in the middle of it, it's just like there's so much just joy and just all these things that are good going on. Yeah. And you almost don't feel any of that stuff until maybe it all wears out. And then you're like, man.
Well, but I think, like, I don't know if this is the best analogy, but, I've seen several years ago, we were down here working on something. I was in the sanctuary, and there was just a few of us in there, and we heard this loud, like, bang, and it had been hailing outside. Come running outside. We're right on the freeway, our church is, and there's I looked it up on the security cameras later because there was enough view of the freeway to see it. There was a minivan. There was several cars involved, but there was this minivan that rolled like multiple times right by our church. I mean, I can't remember how many times, but on the video camera we saw it. But when we came out, it was already, upside down or whatever it was, and it had slid on the hail. The hail was so heavy, and this guy, we're watching. We come out, and we're seeing this happen right before us. Yeah. This guy gets out of that van. And I'm like, how is that guy even alive? And then we ran down. There was a truck further down that went off the road. And so anyway, the guy, he was injured really bad, but he was in shock. And so he was able to get out or whatever. And so, again, I don't know if this is the best analogy, but I think of momentum is exciting. Yeah. But without structure, it can turn into chaos. And so a lot of times, exactly what you just said. It can feel great and awesome, but then you get to the end of the event or the end of Sunday school, and you realize, okay, here's an example. I'm just kind of creating this on the fly, but here's an example is we're really big on themes. Right. We can do a theme, and it flow so well and just be on that high, so to speak, right. Just like, man, this is awesome and everything, and then get to the end and realize, wait, did we forget to teach the lesson, or did we really have a good altar call or. Yeah. And so we flowed, but we forgot, the whole structure behind it.
Right. Yeah. This makes me think of myself a little bit when it comes to like preaching or not so much a chapel anymore, but I get so nervous that like I have all this stuff in my mind, all these things I feel like I want to say, and I have to literally write out a script almost, because if I don't, I'll get up there and I'll just like forget all this stuff that I meant to say. But I think a lot of times for me personally, I reflect back and I realize like if I had done a little bit more in studying, done a little bit more work, that's really where I can change that a lot to where even when I do get nervous, because I've talked to several guys that preach and they all say the same sentiment, which is I still get nervous now, but it's the preparation leading up to that saves me in that moment of nervousness. Whereas some of us maybe that are newer or don't study as much maybe we should or aren't as organized as we should be, you have to rest on that structure that I, like I said, that script almost that I wrote down, or else I'll just forget stuff. Yeah. And I wrote down a little note that when you're not organized and when you don't prepare properly, it has the ability to hinder the spirit. And even in Sunday school, it can really set things back to where the spirit can't move like it's supposed to, because things are just so out of control and so chaotic. And all it needed was a little bit of structure and a little bit of organization on your part as a leader that really would have set the spirit, or the ability for the spirit to move in a whole lot stronger way than it did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's so many things, like, it's boring, to be organized and, to set up structures and everything. It's not exciting, it's mundane, it's boring, but it's so necessary. And that's what makes everything thrive. Like that's being organized, when you walk into an event or when you walk into Sunday school on a Sunday, having things organized, that helps the flow and it gives you energy and it gives you drive, because it's like everything's just right there. When you reach to grab that prop, it's there. Or just go to your locker and your costume's there. Those little things, those things make a difference. And having that foundation of preparation, like what you talked about with preaching or teaching a Bible study or teaching in chapel, whatever, any of those things, the more that we prepare, like even outside of Sunday, or especially I should say outside of Sunday, when we are prepared as an individual, as a leader, and when we're prepared overall, and like on a macro level, just our lifestyle, when we're prepared and we have a prayer life and study the Word, but even the script, or if you're preaching, knowing the material inside and out, then it's kind of like the example about the lines in the skit. You might get up there and yes, you get nervous. I mean, I remember Brother Bo, legendary preacher, telling me he was nervous one time and at a conference. And so, yes, you might get nervous, but you get up there, and like you said with Brother Keach, you go, and it just starts to flow.
When you know the material so well, it's just that stuff just doesn't even impact you. It's this organization and preparation that when it's lacking, it just negatively impacts your ministry so strong. It'll negatively impact your Sunday school. If that's your ministry, it'll negatively impact, whatever your ministry is in the church. It'll just, negatively impact that. And this is what drives me so crazy about when people say that they don't like organized religion. This is like their excuse as to why they don't come to a church. It's like, but God by his nature is order and structure, and one should expect a group that is supposed to represent God to be organized and structured. So exactly. And when somebody says, I'm like, well, what do you want it to be? Chaotic? That's a complete opposite of what God wants us to be. He wants us to be organized and structured. And like you said, it's not the coolest thing to be, to be overly organized or things like that, but it's what will make things so much better. It'll make things so much more sustainable. It's just such a positive impact. And this is an area for me personally that I really, like I said, when I got this, I was like, man, this is really for me. And it's an area that I probably am the weakest in when it comes to like my notes and all these things that I do for Bible studies and chapel and stuff. I have a bunch of little spiral notebooks, and there's just filled with notes, but there's no organization. They're so random. I just, in the morning when I'm preparing for stuff and when I'm doing my study, I just open and find the first blank page I can find, and I just start writing notes in there. And so a lot of times when I'm going back to these old notes, I have to like flip through. I have like probably 4 spiral notebooks in my bag that I have to flip through to figure out which one has the stuff in it that I was going to use. And then I've told myself, and I have a basket or a big like tote in my room that has a whole bunch of old stuff in it as well. And it's not really, so recently I decided to start writing a new book, and I have the structure already there as far as the Bible studies. I've written most of them already for years ago, but I'm going to rewrite most of them. But I knew I had the material there. I'm like, where's it at? I'm like having to sift through everything. I'm just like, I need to be more organized because this is just ridiculous. And so it's something that kind of hit me in the face. And like you said, it's such a vital part of what's going to really set your ministry on a whole nother level and really take things to the whole nother levels. If you can just get yourself to be more organized and prepare better, it's immeasurable in my opinion how much stronger things will be. Yeah, well, and I think my next note there is great leaders win in the small unseen moments. I have seen this, and I guess, as you grow older or even just more experienced, you get a peek, behind the scenes more and more. And so, and just knowing more people and stuff, some of these very successful preachers and leaders, and even like in my work, my career, I have seen great leaders that this is so true. It's like, man, they're incredible. They do seemingly, they make big, bold moves, and it seems like they can, like in my work, they can come into a project and make massive differences. But if you really reverse engineer it and you break it down, it's really all these small things that they just do, and a lot of it is because they do it every single day. Yeah, a while ago I asked Pastor Burgess about his study habits because I told him, I said, I really want to like take my personal and Bible study type studying up to another level. And so he sent me a huge bunch of information, but one of the things he sent me was his study habits and what he studied over the years. And so everybody sees what he preaches on Sunday morning or Sunday night or Wednesday night, but what they don't see is this. And this is, I'm sure, has changed since then, because this is probably like 6 or 8 months ago. But he studied the book of Matthew for a whole year, the book of Mark for a whole year, the book of John for 2 years, the book of Luke for 2.5 years, Paul's journeys. He mapped out the ministry and timeline of Jesus. 3 years of Jesus' ministry, he studied that. Jesus' last week of on the earth. Each of the kings, think about how many kings there were in the Bible. All the major and minor prophets. He studied the 400 years of silence, Herod's, Maccabees, Revelation, prophecy books, and all these other things. I mean, it's just tons of... When I looked at some of the stuff that he's... 2.5 years in the book of Luke, I'm just like, man, that's a long time to be in one individual book. So we all see like a message he preaches and the way he comes across on the pulpit, and we're all, people are just like, man, that's amazing. That's crazy good. But they don't see those types of things. They don't see the studying and waking up early every day and spending hours in the Word. And that's really where those messages come together. That's why he can come to a service and literally write down 3 or 4 scriptures on a Post-it note and then preach for an hour. Yeah. Because of that preparation. That's how that happens.
And on a macro level, on a lifestyle level.
Yep. He's in it every day. This is not, he doesn't just preach it, he lives it.
Yes.
And so when you're in ministry or just even in life, this is how you should be. You can't just teach these kids in Sunday school. This is what we're talking about for Sunday school, but you can't just teach these kids and that's all you ever talk about it is in that Sunday school setting. You need to actually live it and study it, eat it, breathe it. Just everything that you are needs to be about it. And it's going to change everything. I mean, it's so important.
Yeah. I think, like these tiny steps, planning, tracking, reviewing, keeping everything in line. One of the things you said about the notebooks and stuff, it reminded me, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I just saw this on a podcast a couple months ago, but John Maxwell, one of my favorite authors, he said something. It was really interesting, and I might get this wrong because I don't remember. It was like 3 things or 4 things, but he said that he does every single day, and so filing was what brought it to my mind because he like now I think he uses some kind of electronic version, but he said that. I mean, you can tell in his books are filled with quotes. Yep. And so he would, like, back in the day, he would cut things out of, like, a magazine or whatever, or Reader's Digest or something. He would cut it out and file it under whatever, I don't know, I can't remember if it was topical or what, but he would file these things. And so he would, like, again, I might get it wrong, but something like read, file, and write or something every single day. Yep. And it was funny, he said in the podcast, he said people would ask him, like, well, what about, like, on your birthday? And he said, I read, write, and file every day. What about Christmas? I read, write, file.
Consistency. It's so important.
But, doing that filing and writing. So the note I put is the mundane tasks are what separate success from mediocrity.
Yeah. Like track how many kids attend weekly. How many kids did you have this week? If your pastor was to ask you, you should be able to almost right on cue, just who says, how many kids do you have in Sunday school today? You shouldn't have to be, I don't really know. Yeah. How many came off the bus, or how many got the Holy Ghost, or track, what lessons you taught. I think that is a big one. I know for me personally, I have a tracker for my weekly Bible study. I track attendance every single week. I put down every single person that attends each week. I track first-time visitors, so I can tell somebody right now I've had 196 first-time visitors in my Bible study in almost 3 years. I track every week which Bible study is taught, and for multiple reasons, one, it's like, it's cool to look back and say, this is how many people we've had or whatever. But the lessons thing, it's like, I don't want to repeat the same thing I just taught maybe 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh,
people
yeah.
Like, well, he literally just talked about that.
Yeah.
So when I'm going to try to decide like what I'm going to talk about, or if you're a Sunday school teacher, like, oh, what should we do for a lesson this week? Or what should we do for, our theme this time? Brother Gabe, you keep track of the themes. You could tell me right now, when's the last time we did this, spy theme or whatever. And you say, oh, that was back, 3 years ago or whatever it was. And because you don't want to get too repetitive and you don't want to keep teaching the same lesson every week.
Yeah.
There's so many things to go over in the Bible. And when you get repetitive, it can get kind of boring for the kids. So if you track this stuff down, then when you're tracking like the kids getting the Holy Ghost, that's tracking victories and wins.
Yeah.
You can look back, oh, this is where my ministry is successful.
Well, and the thing is, like, the reason I put that mundane in there is, like, you track your Bible study. And I don't know how you do it exactly, but it's tempting sometimes when the practice, the Bible study, the Sunday school is, whatever it is over. Okay, let's go home. Let's go, like Pastor says, let's go eat chicken. But really, like, usually on Sundays, I don't leave here for about an hour after Sunday school's over. I mean, there's other things to do, cleaning and stuff, but there's a lot of things that are happening. And one of the things I did that I was way more diligent than I ever have been this year at Heart of Christmas. So Heart of Christmas, for us, it's a big event.
Yeah.
The staffing is, oh man, I don't have this number off the top of my head, but it's like 120 in the staffing. And so, but the practices, and I don't have this off the top of my head either, but the practices, there's from October, it starts right after our forward conference. So October to December, it's like 100, and I'm at all of them. Yeah. And so what I did this year is I tracked attendance on all of them.
Yep.
And that's very hard. I really, for something like that, I really need an assistant because I'm running the practice too. And so it's difficult. In fact, sometimes what I would have to do is I would have to, after the event, I'd have to go home, get on my computer, go on the cameras, because there's like 3 people or something. I didn't know what time they showed up. And so, but I was telling my daughter about this. I said, the thing is I said, this is helpful this year. It'll be helpful for next year. But where it really will be helpful is in 3 years. Because I don't want to nerd out on this too much, but what I'm tracking is it can show what segments, how well they're attended. And obviously the people, it can show how well, like, a person attended practice or were late or whatever, but the segments and then days of the week and times. And I can maybe over 3 years, I could probably start to see a trend like, oh, Thursdays was terrible attendance. Let's not put our important segments there, or whatever.
Well, then it also helps you too. Like, it shows you people that you can count on and rely on to be there and to be a part of these different skits and segments or whatever. So that way, like, next year, if you're like, oh, maybe we want to take the specific skit, it's going to be a new one, let's say, and like, who can I put in this? And then you can go back and it could be something to where you could look like, well, at least I know that I can count on so-and-so because they were literally at every practice that we had. Yeah. And they were on time every time or whatever. So it kind of, it also creates a situation where you can make the final product better because that organization, you can look back at your notes and go, okay, these people are good to go. I can count on them. And then, like you said, too, with the efficiency of practice, because really, considering what we do, it's not that much practice in reality. I mean, overall for you, yes, but for individuals, I think me and Keach was probably, if I had to guess, maybe eight practices or something like that. And so for that's just really not a lot. Right. And so if you can make these practices more efficient, that's going to make the final product better as well. Yeah. And so,
well, and the other thing too is, like, somebody could feel like, you're gathering evidence, or whatever. But this is like kind of on a side note, I guess, but I think it fits into being organized. I remember I learned this lesson a long time ago about when you are, like, if you're confronting somebody or talking to them about, an issue, you should never be like, well, you're always late. You should be specific.
Yeah.
And so this helps with that. Yeah. It's like, look, I mean, like I have it in where a formula where it does percentages, like
Yeah.
you were late 20% of the time, or what, whatever, something like that. But being able to, because for one thing, it makes somebody defensive.
Yeah.
Like you're always like, well, no, because I was on time last week. But so it builds that and that's just one thing, I guess.
Yeah.
It's has some accuracy. But I think in all of this, like I remember. I was in a meeting several months ago. It was a remote meeting, and Brother Phil Booker was in that meeting. And we were talking about Summit and I think another event. And I can't remember how it came up, but I was talking about checklists,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "Oh man," he said, "I never feel like doing it in the moment,
Right.
And it's so easy to think like, well, we're not going to, we'll remember that. He said, but my future self,
Well, thank you.
he said, my future self is always so thankful for a checklist that I wrote.
Yeah, I like that. The note you had in there: checklists and systems aren't glamorous, but your future self will thank you.
Yes, that's where I got that from. His comment, because it was like 1 year, my first year there, in fact, and this came from doing Heart of Christmas events. Well, they had a bunch of countryman mics, like a whole bunch, like 15 of them or something. And so we were practicing and stuff, and one of them in practice, died or whatever. And I said, is somebody tasked with getting brand new batteries for these? And nobody was, and I don't know what they did before. I'm sure they got batteries or whatever, but it was a checklist. Now it's a checklist item.
Mm-hmm.
We buy but I told them, and I think we do this at Summit, but I told them at our event, it's a lot of batteries. And then what happens, we use them in Sunday school because it's not as big of a deal if Mike dies, but we replace them every night. It's a fresh set of batteries.
Yeah, a few years ago, I don't remember how many years ago, we had a mic pack die, and that was something that just had gotten missed, where it was like, the batteries didn't get replaced. So at that time, I was going around every night, and I was replacing all the at least the next night. I don't remember. I think we did it 2 nights that time, but and I replaced them maybe 2 years in a row where I did that. But now it's like I always double check.
Yeah, like Sister Keach will write. She writes the date on the battery and puts it. She's on it.
So I always like just in case. But so we haven't replaced every single night, but it's those little details that make all the difference. And
that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. That's so mundane. That's not, that's not the spark machines and the haze and the flashing lights, but it makes the difference for all of that.
And the thing is a successful ministry won't be found in the spotlight. It's going to be found in the trenches. Those
That's
things that
exactly
aren't
right.
necessarily glitzy and glamorous and all that kind of stuff, but it's the stuff that you're doing behind the scenes that makes all the difference.
Yeah, staying organized. All right, well, I think that's a wrap.
All right.